Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Going to work on another reel that we previewed earlier. This is a reel in a bag or a box. Comes to me from Robert out in California. Beautiful example of a Penn Senator 1.0. And Robert said that he took this apart because the free spool release lever wasn't working and he couldn't get the reel back together again. So we're going to do that for him. We'll get this thing set up and hopefully working again, and hopefully with a free spool lever that works. So he tells me that the main pieces, as well as the pieces he was unable to install, are here. I'm going to take these and I'm going to put those into a tray here. Let's see, we got bridge screws, we got side plate screws, we have a dog and a spring. That's probably it. Looks like the rest of the stuff is here, so let's get started on this. So this is a good example to tell you about your practices when you go to rebuild a reel. And one of the best things to do is to get the schematic for the reel. That shows you where all the pieces and parts are. And the second thing to do is to take pictures along the way so that you don't become confused, or if you do become confused, you can go back and reference those pictures in terms of how this thing came apart. So we're going to find out what's going on here. This is unusual in that he didn't put the bridge springs in, but did put the handle on it, and maybe that's just for the sake of keeping the reel together during shipment. I'm not sure, but at any rate, let's break this reel down. So this is the Penn 1.0. It's similar in nature and shares some parts with the Penn Long Beach series, but it has a smaller diameter, and I'll show you the Long Beach series in a little bit, but the smaller outside diameter of the spool excuse me, makes it a little bit more compact. So it's excuse me, it's bigger than the one, smaller than the other. And at this point, if I was disassembling the reel, I would normally take the bridge springs out, but they're out. So let's see what else we can do here. Gonna push this through. Looks like everything works there. So for example, it shares the drag washers with the 60 Long Beach reel. Well, it looks like he did most of this correct, so I'm not quite sure what's gotten in the way here, but I guess we will find out, right? So he cleaned the reel, he lubed the reel, so we don't really have to do too much of that other than kind of reinstall for him. So I'll just take my grease brush, get a little bit more grease into the bearing and onto the eccentric shaft. I'm going to trust that he's had all of this apart. That seems like it's operating smoothly. It's got leather drag washers in there. Well, these weren't serviced, and these need to be serviced because they're stuck to the washers. Now that's still pliable, we can use them. The only time you really need to replace those leather washers is if they get broken. These are just stuck. So what you want to do with those is you want to kind of peel them off just like I did. If they didn't peel, if they were cracking or chipping, they would need to be replaced. In this case, they are working, so that's okay. Drag washers were made of multiple types of materials. Sometimes you'll find the leather washers in it like this. That was kind of the starting point. And sometimes you'll find felt washers in there. Sometimes you'll find the new improved Carbon-Tex washers in there. And sometimes you'll find plastic washers in there, hard washers. So there's different ways to clean and lube each, but leather is a material that needs to be kept soft and pliable. The best way to do that is with a fishing reel drag grease. I'm just using steel wool here to clean off the dirt, some of the washer material that is stuck to it, and just some tarnish. All right, with the leather washer, I'm going to use Cal's Universal Drag Grease. I'm going to give it a good coat. And I'm going to, we can just put the washer, the main gear back on. I'm going to make sure that it's got a nice slippery coating on both sides. There's two round washers called keyed washers, and there's one that's got ears on it, the eared washers, called just that, eared washer. Again, we'll just put a good amount of grease on there. You don't want to put too much in. Some of it's sliding off onto my glove. If you put too much on when you go to compress it, it's just going to push out the sides. It's going to be ineffective anyway. All right, one more of these drag washers then. So again, if those broke or cracked, you would want to replace them. You don't have to replace them in this situation. Okay, and then we got our last of our keyed washers, and we have our cap washer up top. So even though we said it, it was ready to go, it's a good thing we just checked on that drag stock there, because it did need a little bit of service. All right, so with that in mind, then we're going to go set this up to reinstall the balance. This is a beautiful clean reel. These are sought after. A lot of folks who collect pens do like the 1.0 and 2.0. The reason why they seem to be a little bit more collectible is that they weren't made as much. I mentioned the similarities to the Penn Long Beach line. The 1.0 is very similar to the Penn 60, and the 2.0 is very similar in size and capacity to the Penn 65. They are a little bit more narrow in terms of the diameter, but short of that, they're basically the same reel. Actually, the bridge here is a 99 bridge. That's the Silver Beach bridge, but the drag washers and everything on that bridge, including the main gear, are pretty much the same. I put the two springs in those cavities. I've greased the yoke and the pinion gear. We've set the free spool eccentric to the high side, and now we're just going to put the jack in to hold everything down. And at that point, it looks like Robert had that correct. We're going to go back now and just make sure that the gear gets greased. Again, he greased everything before. He said he cleaned and greased it. From what I can tell, he did. Let's just go ahead and put that on. You can, or you don't have to put that collar in at the moment. The next thing then is to install this and to make sure that we have the anti-reverse dog in place. I think I'm going to guess that's probably where he got hung up on, was the anti-reverse dog. Okay, so you push down, you come in from underneath, and you rotate the bridge like that. You want to get one of the long bridge screws that's fully threaded, that comes from underneath the anti-reverse dog. Now the anti-reverse dog has a full flat side and then a bump out side. The full flat side goes up like this, and he's got the anti-reverse dog spring that sits on top of that flat line, wraps around, and nests on the side of the plate. So it looks like this. It's kind of set up now, kind of hard to see on this video because they're both the same. Let's just point it out for you. That flat spring is lying on the flat side of the dog, hooks around the post there, and then sits into the cavity there. Once you do that, you rotate the bridge completely around, and a couple of turns on that bridge screw to get it started. I don't tighten it down at this point because I still have other screws to put in, and I like to leave a little free play in there or wiggle room so that I can get the others. Those are pretty tight tolerances. If you tighten one side down and get it a little bit askew, sometimes you have to struggle to get that last piece in, especially these that are going through the springs. These are the partially threaded screws up top. Full threaded screws go below. So this is the second of the fully threaded screw. And we'll know in a moment if that free spool is operating. I have no reason to believe it won't be operating. And much to Robert's relief, this reel will be out there fishing again. Okay then, let's just finish this up. Let's give it a test. Make sure that it's working nicely. It is. You can hear that nice loud click, that anti-reverse. So let's finish the reassembly then. Let's give it this second back up there. We're going to grab our side plate, get a little grease on there, make sure that we get some grease into the bearing holder. Let's put our spool in, make sure we get some grease onto the shaft of it. Then let's put our side plate back onto the reel itself. Once you load your side plate on, then you want to look for your screws. You have two size screws. You have a long screw and a short screw. The long screws go in the cross posts of the reel. The short screw goes into the reel seat. So I like to put one up top on the right and go over and put the long screw onto the one on the left, and then the short screw into the reel seat, and then repeat. I do that to balance the reel so that we don't find ourselves in a place where it's binding because you got too much tension on one side and no tension on the other side. So that's a short screw that goes in there. The reason for that is they don't want the screws to protrude through that reel seat and catch the line below. Alright, the other two long screws. So if you like this type of video, I ask that you subscribe, and if you do subscribe, hit notifications. That way you'll see all of the reels that I'm working on, and you can choose which ones you want to watch. I do saltwater and freshwater and all types, spinning, conventional, bait caster, and the like. If you have an interest in any of those, then please subscribe and hit the notification button. If you have a question on this reel or any reel in particular, if you leave that in the comments section, I do try to respond to all questions and comments. It's getting a little bit more difficult with the growing subscription base, but I still try to do that. And finally, if you have a reel that needs to be worked on, if you contact me by the email on the business card that follows, I'll be happy to provide you with reel service information. All right, we have the ferrule goes on next. We have the star adjuster. There's two sides on the star adjuster. You're going to notice one side has a part number on it. This one has 10-60. That part number goes to the inside. If you do look at that star adjuster, you'll find that one has a slightly rounded contour to it and the other side is flat. So just make sure that you put it in that direction. It doesn't affect performance. If you put it in backwards, it's a cosmetic thing, but be aware of it. All right, handles on next. Handle screw. And I like to tighten it down as much by hand as I can before I do the final tightening with the wrench. On that handle screw, you have scallops. You need to align one of those indentations with the slot for the hold down screw. Just like that. Grab the hold down screw. And just tighten that in and up. And that'll ensure that that handle screw doesn't loosen so that your handle becomes too loose. All right, let's tighten it down, give it a test. Here we go. One beautiful Penn Senator 110 or 1/0, depending on where you are. And this one is a nice example of that reel. Again, I made mention to the fact that it is similar in nature to a Penn 60. Here's that Penn 60. This one clearly needs to be rebuilt, but about the same size frame. The only difference here, a couple of things. You have a chrome trim ring on the outside of the Senator, and you also have just a slightly smaller diameter between the two. But other than that, a lot of the internal parts are the same between them. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day, good fishing, and please stay well during the pandemic. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle.